welcome back to another episode of Debt Collection 101. We have a new guest on the show today. We have Mary Shores. Mary's a second-generation agency owner, best-selling author, and creator of the Collection Advantage online program, which is designed to help collectors create and execute high-converting scripting. She's here today to teach you how to communicate with consumers and increase your revenue even in times of crisis. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. I'm excited to talk to both of you.
Yeah. And obviously we have Tracy here. So just to start off, tell us a little bit about yourself and Shores Communication.
Sure. Well, my name is Mary Shores, and as you've heard, I'm a second generation debt collector. So my parents started an agency in 1986, and I started my own agency in 1998 when I was only around 24 years old. So I was pretty young when I got started. I've done every job in the industry, started as a stamp licker. That was a job back in the 90s. And stamp licker, envelope sealer, filed the old index cards. And then whenever things started going to the way of the computer and getting a little bit more modernized, my parents used to make me write out all the notes on hand and then type them all into the computer because they didn't trust the computer. I've done the skip tracing and even on occasion the process serving. So that's a little bit about me and my history. And at some point, I really just fell in love with the strategic part of the actual the debt collection process. So that part of the operation, I think so oftentimes we can lose sight of the fact that it is our collectors that are our biggest asset. It is our collectors that need the most investment in, especially now. We can't leave them high and dry. That is our function in this world. If you're a collection agency, it is quite simply to collect past due bills. And it's great, we're seeing all kinds of modern technology. And I think that the foundation of that still starts with the collector.
I totally agree. And we've seen that ourselves. This is going on our YouTube channel, and our most popular video on our YouTube channel is our top tips for collectors video. So, it's definitely something people need more information about. And no matter if you're good at it, you can always get better. So I think that, I'm excited to learn more. So my first question for you is that there are a lot of consumers who have experienced significant financial impact from the pandemic. So what would be the best way for a collector to open up a conversation with them about their debt?
Well, I'm so glad that I get to give one of those collector tips because that's my very favorite thing to do. So I feel like our country and even ourselves and our collectors, there's no one immune to what has happened in the world with COVID-19. And now, as of the recording of this video, we're also going through civil unrest. And so, those things are a major disruption, or what I believe adds up to an actual economic shock. Because as a collector, and I'm speaking directly to you, I'm sure that many of you have felt that uncertainty about your job and about your industry. And you may have had clients hitting the pause button and not wanting those collection calls to happen. You may have regulation in your state that limits you. So I feel like that one of the best things we can do as a collector to open up a conversation with a consumer in a way that is super high on the empathy scale is to ask feeling questions. And so one of my very favorite questions is you ask the consumer quite simply, how are you feeling about your finances over the next few weeks? Now, I've gone over this scripting with lots of collectors in a multiple different industries, not just the collection industry. Actually, the first phone call I got was from a company doing timeshares, and they wanted to know how to talk to people and keep up these timeshare payments because they actually didn't want the people to go into collections. So the question again, how are you feeling about your finances over the next few weeks? So that's actually a calibrated question, and it comes directly out of the Collection Advantage online training program. So I want to take this one step further and say, how are you going to respond? So you ask that question, how are you feeling about your finances over the next few weeks? You pause, Okay, take that psychological pause, and you're going to listen to one of two types of responses. Okay, so the first type of response, which is what I think you're most likely to get as of the recording of this video, is a response filled with uncertainty. So uncertainty looks like, oh, I'm laid off from my job. They haven't called me back yet. I'm really not sure what's going on. I've applied for unemployment, but I don't know how long that's going to last, or I don't know what my current status is. So anytime that they respond in a way that sort of leaves questions in the air, that's an uncertain response. And the other type of response is a certainty response. So certainty looks like, it's a bit rough and it's scary out there, and I'm fortunate because my company has made it available for me to work from home. Or you might have someone who tells you, I was really in luck because my job was considered essential, and so because I was essential, I actually didn't miss work. In fact, I feel like I'm thriving in this environment. So that's a response that looks like certainty. So once you've determined whether that response is certain or uncertain, then you're going to respond in one of two ways with a validation, which is the first step of the communication code, which is a process I teach in my program. So what you would say is, we'll go with uncertainty first, because I think that's what we're going to hear the most of. You're going to say, I completely understand your situation. Many people are telling us the same thing, so you are not alone. And just trust me on this one, guys, this works. Number one, the question you're asking is about how they're feeling about something, okay? It's not pushing them what they're doing, when are they gonna pay? It's opening up the conversation in a very gentle and empathetic way. And let me tell you something, oftentimes as collectors, you're put in this position and you're told to hit the empathy button in your mind. Like all of a sudden, just be empathetic. But if there's no one to show you how to do that, what are you supposed to do? Okay. So this is the start of it, is to understand it's more than just saying the words, I understand you. Because what a lot of collectors will do is say, I understand what you're going through, but you still owe this debt. And the words, but you still owe this debt, completely erased the empathy that you said with the I understand. And not only that, it's deeply triggering, because basically you've said, I don't care about your situation. So that proper scripting is, I understand. Many people are telling us the same way, so you are not alone. Instantly humanizes the situation, promise you that it will work. And then if it's a certainty response, then you want to respond with something that is accentuating the fact that they told you something positive. So something like, oh, I'm so happy for you. You're one of the lucky ones. So you want to still do a validation, but you want to make it reinforcing the positive statement that they just told you.
That is some good information. Hopefully everyone who watches this uses that, because I know just talking with clients and stuff, that is the biggest thing that people are seeing, is how do you communicate with every type of person. So thanks, that's awesome.
So glad you loved it.
I know, I can tell. So as collectors, begin to return to their offices, what kind of communication do you recommend come from leadership, and how will that trickle down into the conversations collectors have with consumers?
So I think this is so important, and it really starts with getting ahead of your consumers or your employees' needs. So we need to understand what they need to feel safe, because that whole uncertainty principle that I talked about in the last question, it applies here too. So one of the things that I've noticed is, if I can do my best to anticipate the level and the quality of questions that my collectors or any remote person is going to be asking me, if I'm prepared to be able to answer those questions, number one. Number two, really take it as a time to reflect on your company goals. So one of the first things that I did was send out a company-wide email and said, I have 3 goals. Number one is safety. Everyone everyone stays safe during this. Okay. Now this was months ago. So I had no way of knowing what was going to happen or how terrible things were going to get. Number 2 goal was, I want the company to flourish. I did not want to become a statistic that said how many businesses were going under. And we know that those statistics are coming in fast. Okay. And number 3 was I did not want to lay anyone off. I did not want anyone to lose their job or lose their position as a result of COVID. And I communicated those things. So now, in addition to that, it's like, as they're coming back, think about what some of their concerns are. You know, there's a whole spectrum of people having, you know, whether they have to wear a mask, don't have to wear a mask. Is there going to be a hand sanitizing station every 6 feet? You know, are we going to have to take our temperature? But the more you answer questions up front in whatever modality or method that you have to do that, whether it's via email, whether it's getting everyone together in a meeting, but just be aware that you're going to have certain employees that are going to be super squeamish. You know, they're going to be like, someone sneezes and they're going to jump back. Okay. And then you're going to have your like business as usual. Let's high five, hug each other. I miss you so much. You know, you're going to have that person too. And you're going to have everything in between. There's a lot of shame going on too. Like I've noticed, because Illinois is where I live and it's a super strict state as far as shelter in place. And as people are going out in public, it's kind of like there are people who want to wear a mask, but they're really nervous, and they're not even nervous about themselves, but they're nervous about their grandma that they're going to go visit in the nursing home later, you know, a week from now. So getting ahead of those conversations will be really beneficial. And I just want to add to that as well, that investing in your collectors, like letting them know that, hey, we understand that this is a job, this is an industry where there's a pressure to be perfect all the time. I mean, what other industry that you know of has the high litigation rates that we have, and this pressure for perfection where, you know, most industries that I know, if you make a mistake, you're allowed some time to like recover and make up for that mistake, and then the problem goes away. In the collection industry, nope. You make the mistake. It doesn't matter what you do in response. It doesn't matter, because you're not given that chance to make it right. So I think that, you know, being gentle with the collectors and giving them that opportunity to feel human and really bringing that out in the open. It's like having that conversation. How can we do better? Because the truth is, we would do better when we know how to do better. If we knew better, we'd do better.
I love that. So you've said previously that the way we behave now will determine our industry's reputation for the next 10 years. And I definitely agree. And you can tell things are shifting. So can you expand on that point and just let us know how you think the pandemic will change and affect the collection industry?
I think that there's so many ways and opportunities for the collection industry to begin to unravel the pieces of our strategies and the way that we run our agencies. It's like the anthill got knocked over, okay? Because let's look at what's going on. All right, number 1, we've got the pandemic. How many of you out there really believe that life will ever go back to the way it was pre-COVID-19? I'm sorry, but I'm old enough to have lived through certain things, and sometimes you just don't go back. Now, we don't know what that new future is going to look like. And, you know, I'm optimistic as I'm seeing the other things that are unfolding. So, for example, the civil unrest that's happening in the country right now, another thing. Can you imagine? I mean, do either one of you imagine a world where the police department ever goes back to the way that it was? You know, do you ever imagine that happening? No. Okay. So what other areas do you think could use some reform? I think that personally, and I'll just make a little prediction here, education is going to be quickly behind police brutality. It will be education, because you know why? Because education truly needs reform. Now let's talk about the collection industry. I think that our anthill has been knocked over and it's time to rebuild it, but we can rebuild it in such bigger, better, stronger, more connecting ways where we can have a positive influence on our community. We can be those humanitarian plus companies. It's not going to be okay to put all over your marketing material and say, we are kind, compassionate collectors, but in the back room, you're throwing up in your mouth when you're listening to one of these telephone calls. Okay. So where do you start? And I think that we need to take a fundamental look at a few things. One of the ways is even the terminology we use within the collection industry. I would love to see a T-chart. And if I had my big whiteboard here, I would totally do this, where you just have like, stop saying on the left side and start saying on the right side. And what do we put on the left side? Okay, basic words like talk off, thing of the past. Okay, we're not trying to collect money by exhausting people. What do we put on the right side? We're going to build a call flow. We're going to learn that communication starts with different chunks of the pieces of the communication that get together like a roadmap that creates a path to an agreement. All right, we're going to get rid of the concept of making a demand. What if we're asking for payment? What if we're making a request? What if we're discussing options? Okay, there's just so much we can start to shift from the way that we look at the industry. A couple of times in this last few days, I've had conversations with other agencies where maybe one level, like their team leaders, their managers, they're really ready to embrace this change because they know that that's a workable solution, but they're worried about the buy-in that they get from the top. So why is that? It's because and I've talked to many people who feel the same way about this, is that there's a resistance to change in the industry. Okay, that's all right. I get it. A lot of it's maybe because we have such a multi-generational ownership and people who've been in the industry a very long time. So we want to hold on to those old ways. But where is the innovation? We're so ready for innovation. We're so ready for technology to come in. And I promise you that since I've already been running my agency for 15 years using the collection advantage and using empathetic and compassionate scripting, that our revenue went up so much. I mean, just with the addition of the very first thing we did, which was eliminate negative language, because negative words plant a seed of a negative impact and positive words plant a seed of a positive outcome is what I meant to say. Negative words plant a seed of a negative outcome. Positive words plant a seed of a positive outcome. So just that one thing, and then training it from the ground up, because we need to invest in these collectors. They are our biggest asset. So just that one thing alone, revenue skyrocketed 34%. And then all the other pieces of it just fit together perfectly. And now is the perfect time because number one, it's going to be expected of us. Number two, it's the right thing to do. Okay. It's literally the right thing to do. And number three, our clients are going to get involved, and our clients are going to want to know what is our communication strategy. This is a soft skill that needs to be developed. So I think that by asking consumers, like by really actually caring and showing that we are about what we talk about. How many collectors tell you that, oh, like our collectors are super friendly? And, but like, let's actually prove that. Let's actually be about what we say we're about.
Absolutely. I think that's so important this day and age. I mean, people will call you out if you say you're one thing and you end up being another. So that's really important to be authentic and genuine. And as not only is it the right thing to do, it also helps, the bottom line. So I love that. And definitely agree with everything that you said, just as, for businesses that aren't collection agencies. So if anybody's watching this and they don't work in collections, like definitely, I think that's all applies to any interaction that you might have with a customer. So
it's so true, because like, let's just say you're at home and you're running a personal training business. Same thing. How do you feel about your at-home workout schedule? ... Then listen, is it a certain response or an uncertainty response? Because you know why? Because conversations like that bring humanity back into any process. And remember that we're all people and we're all going through things. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like all the isolation is turning the volume up on a lot of internal issues. And that's a good thing and also a terrifying thing.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure too. Yeah. Well, those are all the questions we have for you. Thank you again for joining us. You had a lot of great advice, and I hope everyone watching this takes everything you said and applies it to their business and tries it out, and hopefully they can let us know or even reach out to you. I'm sure you'd be willing to take questions or anything. I would love to hear if people do try it and what their results are. So thanks again. Thanks for joining, everyone. And we'll see you next time.